Good afternoon. My name is Tom Mitchell. They call me Tattoo Tom for some reason. I wish they called me Handsome Tom or Rich Tom, but you don't get to pick your nicknames. So anyway, just exactly how does one go about accepting the unacceptable? Well, I'm going to attempt to answer that question, but first a story. Hey, Dad, I haven't been feeling too well lately. You think you could take me to the doctors? I think I might have a sinus infection. Sure, Shayla. I'll pick you up after school tomorrow. We'll grab some dinner afterwards if you want. Well, it turns out my daughter's sinus infection was anything but. It was actually a huge cancerous tumor that had been taking up 2/3 of her chest. It had caused one of her lungs to collapse. We did indeed have dinner that night, but neither one of us was very hungry. We mostly just pushed our food around on our plates in a room on the 5th floor of Fairfax Hospital, the pediatric oncology unit. We didn't know it at the time, but we would wind up having our next 450 meals in that hospital room. When the doctors gave me the news that my daughter Shayla had stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, I had to dig really deep inside of myself. I had to become braver than I ever thought possible. I had to have a really tough conversation with a really scared 16-year-old girl. I wound up purchasing 2 sterling silver feather bracelets from an American Indian art store around the corner from the hospital, a small feminine version for Shayla, and this thicker version for myself. I held the bracelets and I held my breath and I spread my arms, and I went into that hospital room to have that very difficult conversation. I talked with my daughter about everything and nothing and flowers. We talked about the wind, we talked about feathers, and we talked about the word brave. We talked about cancer. We held each other really tight for a really long time, and I'm pretty sure we cried a little, but we promised each other that we would get through this together. We would stay brave. I gave Shayla the bracelet that I had purchased for her, and I put mine on at the same time. And I promised her 3 things. Number 1, for every night she had to stay in the hospital, I would stay with her. Number 2, that I would wear my bracelet until the day she was cancer-free. And number 3, that as long as she stayed brave, so would I. I've kept all 3 of those promises to this day. We would wind up spending countless nights in the hospital, and we would wind up spending countless hours in the chemotherapy clinic. And there was Zofran and PICC lines and Ativan, oh my. There were counts and blood transfusions and A&C and magic mouthwash and butt paste. And shortly after the chemotherapy began, her heart stopped working. They had to install a pacemaker defibrillator into her chest to keep her rhythm safe and correct. I held her hair when she threw up, and I held her hand when her hair fell out. We held each other a lot. We cussed a lot. We cried a lot. But interestingly enough, we laughed a lot too. Often, we talked about the wind, and about feathers, and about being brave. One day, as we were walking to the car on the way to the chemotherapy clinic, something happened that rocked me deep in the core of my bones and will probably haunt me for the rest of my days. That pacemaker, defibrillator that they had installed inside my daughter's chest to keep her heart rhythm safe and correct, well, it began to malfunction. It started shocking my daughter inappropriately, and she was screaming, "Help me, Dad, it's shocking me, it's shocking me." The damn thing was hitting her with powerful volts of electricity designed to restart somebody's heart if it stops beating, but she was wide awake and her heart was beating just fine on its own. I grabbed her and held her as tight as I could. She said, "Help me, Dad, it's shocking me, it's shocking me." The damn thing hit her again and it nearly blew her out of my arms, but I just refused to let go. And just like that, as quickly as it had started, it stopped shocking my daughter. And we rushed to the hospital. It turns out the manufacturer of this device had to recall thousands of them, like brakes on a Chevy. That's all I have to say about that. But again, she and I talked about the wind, and about feathers, and about being brave. There was still to be more chemotherapy and more radiation and more heart surgeries. There was even a failed bone marrow transplant attempt. But you know what? In spite of it all, Shayla stayed brave. She never quit fighting. She still managed to find time to take pretty damn good care of me. But the day came when the doctors told me there was nothing else they could do. How in the world was I supposed to be brave enough to have this conversation? how in the world was I going to be brave enough to tell my daughter she was going to die? I once heard a quote that sort of summed things up for me. Can a man still be brave when he is afraid? Well, that's the only time he can be brave. So I did indeed have that conversation, and as strange as this may sound, it wound up being the most amazing, wonderful, breathtakingly beautiful, magical conversation that I've ever had in my life, and one that I hope you never, ever have to have. One day shortly after that conversation, I came home from a short trip to the pharmacy to find Shayla lying on the bathroom floor crying. She told me she had fallen and gotten tangled up in her oxygen lines. She couldn't pick herself back up onto the toilet. So I picked her up, and I washed her, and I changed her. And I know this was embarrassing for her. You know what? It didn't matter. I never stopped looking into her eyes, nor she looking into mine. We never looked away. It was the first and only time in my life that I understood the true meaning of the words, unconditional love. As I was placing Shayla in the bed, she whispered softly in my ear, "Am I still brave, Dad?" I put my hands on her face, and I looked deep into her eyes. My baby was tired. She was so very tired. She had fought so hard and so bravely for so long. She was still brave, all right. But as I looked into her eyes, I began to realize something. This whole time, she hadn't been staying brave for herself. No, man. She'd been staying brave for me. A couple of days later, my daughter Shayla lost her battle with childhood cancer. She fought hard, and she fought bravely. Today, I rarely talk about the wind, and I seldom talk about feathers. But I do talk an awful lot about this little girl I used to know, and about the importance of being brave. When my daughter Shayla was taken from this world by childhood cancer, I wondered why somebody didn't do something. Then I realized I am somebody. So I started an organization called Stillbrave Childhood Cancer Foundation. Our primary mission is to help support children with cancer and their families in non-medical ways. For instance, we have a financial assistance program. We help with rent, gas cards, grocery cards, home repairs, car repairs, and sadly, we also help pay for way too many funerals. We also have an all-star sibling program where we put on parties and events and activities to celebrate them, the brothers and sisters of children with cancer, whose lives are almost always overshadowed by their siblings' diagnosis. You see, Stillbrave is committed to helping children with cancer and their families in any way we can, so that while they are fighting the toughest war of their lives, we will fight their lesser battles, so they don't have to. We're not only here to support children with cancer, we're also here to support the family and the caregivers who are fighting battles of their own. Now, you can look at me and you could probably tell I don't have a lot of bake sales. Stillbrave is definitely not your average childhood cancer foundation. We call ourselves Renegades. There's a song by a band called Rage Against the Machine. Now, renegades are people with their own philosophies. We change the course of history. Everyday people like you and me. We're the people. We're the renegades. We change the course of history. Everyday people like you and me. Come on. So my organization does things a little differently, and so do I. I became a professional boxer at 39 years old. It's a long story. You know what? It's not a long story. I got knocked out in the first round, but I raised almost $20,000. Hell, I've taken ass whippings for free. 20 grand seemed like a pretty reasonable deal to me. This past summer, I ran in and completed a 100-mile ultramarathon. I dedicated each of those 100 miles to a different child who was either fighting cancer or had lost their battle to cancer. I carried pictures with me of all 100 children on my 30-plus hour continuous run. We raised $88,000 that day. This coming September, in observance of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, I will be towing the starting line and attempting to run a 200-mile ultramarathon. Again, my plan is to dedicate each of those 200 miles to a different child who's either fighting cancer or has lost their battle to cancer. Now, I use all of these things as a vehicle to raise money for our organization. But I'm also known as somebody who aggressively and unapologetically raises awareness. Because for some strange reason, and those people who know me know this, Tattoo Tom loves children with cancer. And I'm a very lucky man because they love me too. So I spend the majority of my time in the trenches, in the chemotherapy clinics and in the hospitals, and I see things and I hear things. So what do I mean by awareness? Well, you might be surprised to learn that every day in the United States, over 40 children are diagnosed with childhood cancer. That's an entire classroom of children, every day, 365 days a year. We've all seen those commercials on TV with the cute, smiling, bald-headed children. But did you know that every day in the United States alone, 7 children die from childhood cancer? 7 children are going to die today. They're going to die tomorrow, 7 children, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. You might be very surprised to learn that in the past 30 years, the FDA has only approved 3 new drugs to treat childhood cancers. How many iPhones do we have? You might also be very, very surprised to learn that of all the billions of dollars appropriated, taxpayer dollars, appropriated annually for cancer research in this country, less than 4% of that money is earmarked for childhood cancers. Children get different cancers than adults, but the National Cancer Institute thinks our children are only worth 4%. That's like taking 1 pepperoni off of a pizza and trying to feed 46 children a day. That math doesn't add up. In fact, America as a whole spends 20 times more money annually on potato chips than we do on childhood cancer research. America spends 20 times more money annually on potato chips than we do on childhood cancer research. I want you to think about that the next time you open a bag of potato chips. And I'm hoping that you will. Remember earlier when I told you that shortly after the chemotherapy began, my daughter's heart stopped beating? What I probably should have told you was this. One of the poisons that we euphemistically call medicine that is used in the chemo cocktail to treat Hodgkin's lymphoma and many other childhood cancers is called doxorubicin. Doxorubicin has earned the nickname the Red Devil or the Red Death because studies have shown that it can and does have a toxic effect on the heart muscle, often leading to heart failure. Approved by the FDA sometime before 1984, we have yet to come up with anything better in the past 30 years. You see, it's like treating our children with leeches. I'm not entirely sure what killed my daughter. Was it the cancer or was it the cure? And these statistics aren't irrational ravings of a grieving father. I'm telling you the truth. Our children aren't dying because there isn't anything we can do. Our children are dying because we aren't doing anything. And now maybe you're aware. I hope so. So just exactly how does one go about accepting the unacceptable? Well, if you're a renegade, you can't, and you won't, and you don't. See, it's a peculiar thing being brave and strong. People seem to think it's because you are brave and strong. But when you lose a child, you never really get over it. You don't push past it. You don't work through it. You don't come out the other side. It never gets any easier, and it definitely never gets any better. It just gets different. My daughter Shayla died from childhood cancer in 2009. I'm not standing here today for my daughter. I'm standing here today for yours. Still brave, Shayla. Still brave.